Silver Creek Studios, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac. On this week's episode, we're going to discuss why the Cardinals can't trade Jose Martinez and why they shouldn't want to. But first, I'd like to invite you to get a hold of the show on Twitter or Instagram at BFIBs Almanac. You can email bfibsalmanac@gmail.com, and you can find us on YouTube, BFIBs Almanac Podcast. Subscribe. You know you want to have all this in-depth baseball knowledge at your fingertips waiting for you on your phone so you can listen in the car, listen at work. Subscribe and it'll be waiting right there in your podcast app. Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, whatever your podcast app of choice is. And as usual, if you want to try something else out, a little bit different, check out Get a Load of This. That's my other podcast with a couple of friends of mine, Ryan and Joe. We talk about anything and everything. We go all over the map. We try to keep it light and humorous, and we drink a lot of beer and have a lot of fun. So check out Get a Load of This. All right, let's get into why the Cardinals can't trade Jose Martinez and why they shouldn't want to. First, let's look at who is Jose Martinez. What is Jose Martinez as far as a baseball player? In 2018, he had his first pretty much full season with the team, and he batted .305 with a .364 on-base percentage and a .457 slugging percentage. For those of you that don't want to do the math, that's an .821 OPS. Solid numbers, but we're going to get into that a little bit and just see where that stacks up. Long and short is he's not very good defensively, and so a lot of fans think that he should be traded to an American League team where he can just fill the role of a designated hitter. So basically, fans want to get something for him. They look at him as a valuable asset, and we need to trade him to the AL where he can just be a DH. So does that really make sense? If you look at the numbers, should he be a DH? I did a little checking, and of the top American League teams ranked by WAR at the DH position, 7 have a higher OPS than Jose Martinez. If you rank by home runs, 7 have a higher OPS than Jose Martinez. So in that those top groups of teams, they don't need a player like Jose Martinez. They already have a DH that slugs for a higher slugging percentage and gets on base more than him. The lesser teams aren't in a situation to compete. They're rebuilding, or they aren't looking for a better player. Now, there are a couple situations. Cleveland in particular does not have a DH that is putting up better numbers than Martinez, and they've kind of been talked about as a team that's maybe willing to move some pieces. They've already moved some valuable pieces. They still have a few left. They're not really in this full rebuild mode, but they're also not in a hoarding assets, holding on to what they already have either. So Cleveland could be a team that the Cardinals might have a fit with Jose Martinez and an asset that they would like. But, that's really about it. There's only one or two teams that kind of fit this need that they would have, that we would have, that we could make this trade. So why is that? Well, let's take a look at how his numbers that I just mentioned rank. So his .305 batting average ranks 11th in the big leagues. Not too bad. Very solid. .305. .364 on base percentage only ranks 30th in the big leagues. And his .457 slugging percentage ranks 60th. So the OPS 821 ranks, as you might imagine, 45th. So not really impressive when you look at those power numbers. Even his on-base percentage is decent, but not great. So as far as, what's a stereotypical, prototypical designated hitter, it's a guy that hits for power. He doesn't even necessarily have to get on base as high as some of these other guys do. You want a slugging power hitter in the DH position, and that's just not who Jose Martinez is. He's a batting average guy, an RBI guy, but not the highest on base percentage, and definitely not in slugging. And that's just not what these American League teams are looking for a DH. So another reason to kind of be shy about trading for Martinez is his 2018 season, which was his first essentially full season. He had 152 games, 590 plate appearances. That season was a slight downward trend from his 2017 season, which was a abbreviated season. He only had 106 games, 307 plate appearances. But he batted .309 in 2017 with a .379 on base and a .518 slugging, compared to the .364 and .457 on base and slugging in 2018. So there's this slight downward trend in his first full season. So you could say this 2018 was a full representation of who he is, and the numbers were a little bit lower. He's also a year older. He's 30 now. He's going to turn 31 in this coming season. And as everybody knows, those are the kind of years, 31, 32, when you really start dropping off, and you can drop off quick. Another negative to his 2018 season was he was a -4 in runs from base running. So it's basically a statistic that tracks all the different categories of types of base running, whether it's stolen bases or caught stealing or advancing on a play or whatever. He's a -4. So he's not a good base runner. So when he is getting on base, he's not helping your team with his style of base running. So again, you're looking at, well, if he's not a good base runner and he's not a good defender, is he a good slugger, power hitter? And the answer is not really. He's not terrible. He's just not great. There's plenty of guys better than him. His projections for 2019, according to Baseball Reference, are also expected to drop off in several categories. So batting average, he's looking at .289 instead of .305. On base percentage, .352 instead of .364. He's looking at only hitting 25 doubles. This past season, he had 30. He's looking at only 70 RBI. This past season, he had 83 RBI. So you kind of never know with RBI. It depends on guys that are on base and all that. But some of these numbers are expected to drop off. Now, his slugging percentage is expected to stay about the same. His home run totals are expected to stay about the same. So in that sense, he's not dropping off. But we also said those numbers weren't really all that high to begin with. Like I said, he's going to turn 31 this season, so he's not really a long-term option as far as a prospect. When you think of these young, cost-controlled players, he's not young. He is cost-controlled, and we'll get into that in a minute. But if you were trading away a valuable piece, you want to get a young player who you project to be good for several years, and he's already kind of at his peak, downward trending a little, and you can only expect him to get worse over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So teams want long-term control, and they want long-term performance. And teams that are getting a piece, a young cost-controlled player like that, are not going to want to give up a major league caliber player, starting pitcher or starting position player, for a guy that they're only going to have 1 or 2 valuable seasons out of, which is what you would project with Jose Martinez. If he was 24, 25, 26, yeah, you'd be all excited about getting a guy who's batting .300 and decent in these other offensive categories. You would expect him to get maybe better, but you don't really have that with him. He doesn't project out long term. So that's kind of why these teams aren't really knocking down the Cardinals' door to make a trade. I think the Cardinals would want to get rid of him for a valuable piece, like a starting pitcher or a high leverage reliever. I don't think they're looking to get rid of him for just some backup catcher or, a double-A prospect or, a reliever that's only going to pitch once a week or something like that. Because he does have some value to the team. I don't think they're just looking to unload him. They see him as a valuable asset the way fans do. And I think they were only going to trade him if they could get something, really good for him. And that apparently has not been the case. And I think we know why, is that he does not fit that prototypical DH role. So, should the Cardinals even be wanting to get rid of him? Well, in many ways, I would argue that they shouldn't. He's, like we said, he is a cost-controlled player. He is not going to even reach arbitration until next season in 2020, and he won't be a free agent until 2023. So you're going to have this coming season at the minimum salary with roughly $500,000. And when he does reach arbitration, I wouldn't expect him to go into this crazy territory of salaries, in the double digits of millions. I would expect 3-4 million, 5, something like that, because he is aging and his numbers are going to be trending down. So I think he's going to slot in and get a several $1 million raise, but he's not going to be this crazy expensive player. So, like I said, in that sense, you're going to have control over Martinez probably for the rest of his career. He's not going to hit free agency until he's roughly 34, and he's going to be on his way out at that point. So that's unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate that he didn't get called up to the big leagues until he was 29, I think. Maybe he came up for a few games, his age 28 season, but so, that's not good for him. He didn't get to cash in his prime years the way some of these guys get to, but he's still going to do fine in arbitration, and he'll be okay. And that's the game. Sometimes players get called up really early and sometimes they don't, and you either earn it or you don't. Some people would say he earned it at a young age and just didn't get a chance with the Royals and didn't get a chance right away with the Cardinals, but he's here now and he's going to do what he can with the opportunity. So, another reason to keep him is he had the highest average on the team. That 305 average was the highest by 25 points. So Ozuna was second with a 280 average, followed by Munoz at 276 and Bader at 264. So we're not even talking about guys, in the case of Ozuna, this could be his last year here. The likelihood of extending him, I would say, is not that likely. We've got a lot of outfield pieces behind him that can play for very affordably, and depending on what he does, a lot of that's going to depend on how he performs this year and his health and all that. But I wouldn't expect Ozuna to be back after this season. Munoz is you don't know what you're going to get. I'm not even sure he's going to make the major league team out of spring training. I think he'll wind up in Memphis at least for a little while. And he's unproven. You don't know what you're getting out of Munoz. Bader, again, I do think he's going to be our center fielder of the future, but his offensive numbers are not that great. So these guys who are, next in line on the team, we're not even talking about the core players like Molina and Carpenter and DeYoung and, Goldschmidt at this point. Well, we didn't mention Goldschmidt. His numbers aren't factored in here. I'm going off the 2018 numbers of team players that were on the Cardinals. So Goldschmidt would be higher than most of these guys in most of these categories. But again, there's no guarantee he'll be here next year. We haven't, decided if they're going to try to extend him or if he'll want to. So that being said, you got your highest batting average guy in Martinez. He was second highest in on-base percentage behind Matt Carpenter. Next was Munoz at 350 compared to Martinez's 364. Jerko at 346, Bader at 334. So again, you're talking about not the core guys who are following behind him in on-base percentage. He was second in slugging percentage, again behind Matt Carpenter. Next was Molina at 436 compared to Martinez 457. Ozuna at 433 and DeYoung also at 433. So, this is arguably he's your second best hitter on the team behind Matt Carpenter. And depending on how you value batting average, he could be better than Matt Carpenter. Carpenter had a pretty low batting average this year. So he was second on the team in doubles with 30. DeYoung was next with 25. Bader and Molina both had 20. He was second in RBI behind Ozuna, again, with 83 RBI. Carp had 81. Molina had 74. DeYoung had 68. So offensively, you're talking about the best batting average, the second best on-base percentage, the second best slugging, the second best doubles. His home runs weren't really up there. He only had 17 home runs. But a guy that's putting the ball in play, he's hitting it hard, he's getting on base, he's doing his job as a hitter. He's versatile. He can play outfield and first base, generally right field, but he could play right or left. He's a fun, energetic player. He seems to, he's laughing out there. He's smiling all the time. He's having fun. He's in that batter's box, swirling that bat around in those feet. He's just the kind of guy that looks like he's having fun on the field, and I think that's contagious. It helps other guys loosen up and relax and have fun. I feel like he's really confident in the batter's box. Some of these guys, even like a Tyler O'Neill, a guy who can do major damage, doesn't always look confident in the box. He knows he has that hole in his swing. He's susceptible to a slider. When he does damage, it's a lot of damage, but he's still kind of learning to be a major league hitter. And Martinez just looks ready to hit anytime, and he really doesn't have a hole in his swing. He'll hit anything, up and in, down and away, all over. He's ready to swing. He's kind of like a Vladimir Guerrero in that sense. He'll hit and swing at and hit anything, and generally hit it pretty hard. Now, he's not hitting home runs the way Guerrero was, but he doesn't look overmatched at any time against any pitcher. He's ready to go up there swinging. He knows what he's capable of doing, and he's ready to do it. So that's a valuable asset. Confidence in baseball is everything, and I feel like he is a confident player with a very versatile swing. So those are all kind of big reasons that we should keep him around. He's a affordable player who contributes in a big way to the offense. He is not that big of a contributor defensively, especially now that we do have Goldschmidt, so I wouldn't expect to see Martinez at first base very often at all. But I do think, he can fill in if Goldschmidt needs a day off, or, if he happens to get injured and you have to spend, 10, 15 days, whatever, without Goldschmidt in the lineup, you could plug Martinez at first. He's going to drop off defensively, but you're still going to have offensive production from that first base position with him over there. Same thing with right field. If Fowler doesn't pan out the way they're hoping, you can plug Martinez out there. He'll be serviceable in the outfield. But, you're going to drop off from what you could have put out there. I think O'Neill is by far the superior defender of any of those guys in right field. But he's still figuring out, the hole in his swing. He's hitting for power, but not for average. So, I think Martinez would be very serviceable to start any games in right or at first. So that's something, you want that versatility. You need a guy off the bench like that. And you need a guy off the bench who can reliably get a hit. There are many guys who aren't good at pinch hitting, coming in the 6th or 7th or whatever, and taking some cuts without previous at-bats, just coming in fresh, so to speak, and able to take a good at-bat. They don't have to get in a groove, and not everybody can do that, and Martinez is one of those guys. He can come off the bench and contribute. So, again, a valuable piece to have. So, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals to keep him. Now, you could argue that a National League team might be interested in a guy like Martinez. Not to be a DH, but to be an everyday outfielder or an everyday first baseman. Someone to play a position that isn't necessarily looking for power at that position. Generally, like I said, American League teams are looking for power at the DH position, and he just doesn't display that kind of power. He hits for pop. He's definitely capable of hitting a home run. He does hit a lot of line drives. Like I said, he was second on the team in doubles. So it's not like we're talking about some slap hitter who hits a ton of singles and that's about it. But he's not going to fill that DH role in the American League. Now, if there's an American League team looking for a right fielder or a first baseman, that's going to open up those possibilities. But his deficiencies at those positions are going to make teams be less interested, combined with, his age, his defense, his base running, the fact that he is going to go into arbitration next year. I don't think it's going to be too high, but I think that's why you're going to see teams unwilling to part with a valuable piece. And the Cardinals are only going to want to part with him for a valuable piece. So it's just not really looking likely that they're going to be able to trade him for a piece that they would want. I think they would have no trouble trading him if they were essentially unloading his contract or, just looking to get rid of an aging player. Sure, there'd be lots of teams that would be interested in, but the Cardinals only want to get rid of him for something that they can immediately plug in and use as a valuable piece to their major league club, and I just don't see other teams parting with that piece. So that's pretty much all I have. To me, it's kind of cut and dry. It's fairly obvious why they can't get rid of him and why they shouldn't want to. I think they should want to keep him, barring some bizarre trade where some team wants to give up a valuable reliever or a starting pitcher or something. I don't think they should be trying to get rid of him. I think he's valuable to the offense. He's valuable to a certain extent with his versatility in the field, and he's not costing them anything, $500,000. So I think they should definitely hold on to Jose Martinez, keep him as a good guy to have in the clubhouse, a fun, energetic player, and hopefully contributing to a pennant-winning, World Series-winning team in 2019. Jose Martinez. So, next full episode, we're going to talk about banning the shift and other changes to the game. Should they ban the shift? Should we even be talking about changes to the game? What have been some other changes recently, and what have been some of the other changes over the last, let's say 100 years or so? So we'll get into a lot of that on the next full episode. And on the next pinch hit episode, we're going to talk about the best game I ever saw and almost the worst. I think you know what I would be referring to, but we'll get into that on the next pinch hit episode. So until then, I'm Jared, and this is the BFIBs Almanac.